Interest in Agile Bits, the creators of 1Password, has exploded in the last 12 months. In 2019, they raised 200 million. Then in 2021, they raised a further 100 million. And in 2022, Iron Man, yes, Iron Man and Captain America invested a further 620 million Series C funding round that combined now values the company at $6.8 billion. But we all know what typically happens here. Company comes up with a great product, then as soon as venture capitalist funding gets involved, then things normally take a turn for the worst. So in this video today, I'm going to dive into the world of Agile Bits and 1Password to uncover what is really going on behind the scenes. We're going to discuss whether their 4.8 star rating on Glassdoor is actually real. We're going to take a look at the recent controversial changes in their approach to development, look at the impact this VC investment could have on the company, and try to answer the question of why Ryan Reynolds, Justin Timberlake, and yes, Avengers, Hall of Fame, Captain America, and Iron Man himself have personally invested into the company. To understand why, we need to take a trip back to Toronto in 2005, where Dave and Sarah Tier, Rustam and Natalia Karimov were running a website development company and soon realized that it was a struggle to keep record of all the different passwords they needed. So they set out to create a product to help them store those passwords. But more importantly is a quote I found from founder Dave Tier to say that it's done so without tracking users or monetizing eyeballs. Since that day, they've been profitable and have continued to grow. And they state that this all comes down to a few key things: transparency, trust, and a superb customer experience. Now, 1Password has changed a lot over the years. In 2011, Jeff Shiner, who previously worked for IBM, was brought on board as CEO, or rather Chief Eliminator of Obstacles, as he calls himself on LinkedIn. They went from being 100% Apple-focused with a product that only works on Apple products to one that works on all platforms, all devices, from any location, online, offline, and all of this whilst retaining their initial passion for an enjoyable user experience. But with all of this growth in products and with 1Password now wanting to run across any operating system and any device, be it laptop, desktop, tablet, or a mobile, comes the potential for some problems. Rather than developing a product that works across a single Apple ecosystem, dedicated development teams had to be created to look after each platform. And because development teams are segregated to look after their own respective platforms, this also brought challenges. Major releases took a huge amount of time and effort to bring in line the same updates across all of the different platforms and to maintain a certain level of consistency.
We have a Windows app, and the same thing they would have different release schedules. In many cases, they would have different sets of features even, right? Because, you add something to Mac and then Windows will not have it for a year or two, or maybe never. It was not perfect, but at the same time, they were separate. We saw them as separate products.
In 2021, 1Password made the decision to address this issue by redesigning their whole app and interface in a platform called Electron. Electron allows 1Password to pool all of their development resources together into one product because Electron works cross-platform, which essentially translates into one development team working on one application. Many popular products that we all use today, including Slack, WhatsApp, Microsoft Teams, and Discord, all use Electron. The upside of Electron means that bugs and issues identified on one platform can be fixed at the core of the platform and then quickly rolled out to every device across platforms.
It's going to have a different set of bugs. It's going to just lead to all sorts of weird issues throughout the entire service, right? If you can take a week or even 2 weeks to write it once and then use that everywhere, and you have, you've just reduced the surface of code you have to maintain. And ultimately, it allows for a better product for the end user, and it makes it more secure, right? Like, we can now take this one little set of code and send it to auditors to evaluate and test on their end and those kind of things.
It means new features can be developed and released on time without having to project manage separate teams across Windows, Mac, Android, Linux, Chrome, and just all the other platforms. So 1Password's business decision for moving to Electron makes sense, because when scaling a business, and particularly one that's growing as rapidly as Agile Bits and 1Password, efficiency and speed of delivery is key to staying ahead of their competitors. And because of these new efficiencies, we as the end users also benefit, with a product that's fast and user-friendly regardless of your platform of choice, and with more product updates and new feature releases than I've personally seen from any other password manager. We can assume that 1Password is only setting themselves up for something big, really big in 2022 and beyond. Because whilst they have gone through the pain of changing development platforms, it's for the greater good. And here is where the Avengers fit into the 1Password story. Because since 2019, when the company took its first 200 million in funding, followed by that additional 100 million in 2021, the Avengers have been there, quietly helping on the inside to help 1Password grow and to make them more efficient than ever before. Now, you likely haven't seen many of these announcements as a general consumer, but their sheer pinpoint focus on delivering a good customer experience with an unfaltering level of security seems to still be the same degree that it was back in 2005.
It did take a lot of resources, and I think it has ramifications to us today. And that is how we built out the service, the online service. It's not just a username and a password. It's a username, what we call the secret key, and your account password. And what that is that secret key is generated on your device when you sign up for an account, and it adds 128 bits of entropy to the underlying encryption key that's used to secure your data. So what that means essentially is even if you pick a really crummy account password, when you use 1Password and we use that 128 bits of entropy to derive the unlock keys for your account, even if we were to get hacked tomorrow, there's essentially no way using today's technology to crack this encryption and access your items, especially not in time for you to go change everything.
I think logging, like new 1Password 8, we went so far there to make sure we never log any personal info. And the reason is basically, let's say you have a problem and we ask you for your logs, right? Because to help us to troubleshoot it, and we want to make sure that there's nothing, not even your secrets, but even like personal info, like your email is not logged there, or your even your name is not logged there, so that you could basically not worry about sending the logs to anyone else.
There's a thread on Twitter around the security that goes around protecting the icons that 1Password uses, in case someone found them and then could assume what passwords you're storing in your password manager before they then decided if they want to, try and attack you or get into your password manager. There's 1Password secrets automation, which protects your company's infrastructure secrets like corporate credentials, API tokens, keys, and certificates. Is a huge feature release for businesses looking to protect their more technical security assets. Integrations with partners like Fastmail help to obscure your email address, and with privacy.com help to create virtual burner cards which you can set spend limits on and assign them for specific purchases or subscriptions. And all of this is taking place before their most recent 620 million Series C funding round, which I believe will open doors for 1Password that they just couldn't otherwise reach. Much like Dragon's Den, where companies pitch to get a dragon on board who can instantly get them into their dream stores and in front of their dream customers across the globe, each of these investors bring something valuable to the table.
It's not that easy, and actually just money will not solve the problem. Like if I give you $100 million today and say, hey, you need to be 500 person company in 2 months, I don't think you'll be able to do it. So certainly the main reason for us to get the funding was actually to get the advice, to get the help in many areas that we're lacking. Like we didn't have any experience in terms of HR, benefits, hiring, just even looking for people, I think is pretty hard, especially today. And being a company that is funded, it's much easier for you to go and work for the company that is not going out of business tomorrow, right? This company has $500 million in the bank, and it can certainly sustain the long-term development.
For example, let's look at Ryan Reynolds. Yes, of course, he's the playful personality who's found his footing in the main role in Deadpool, but he's also the chief creative officer behind Mountain, a company that builds advertising software for brands to drive measurable conversions, revenues, and site visits for TV campaigns. So perhaps we'll see a 1Password TV advertisement soon. Actor Robert Downey Jr. also got involved in 1Password Series C, but is also part of a company called Footprint Coalition that's committed to scaling technologies to restore our planet. Perhaps also a sign of improving their green credentials. My point here is that each person, celebrity or not, has unique connections, knowledge, and experience beyond that of just the money they've invested in 1Password. Given 1Password's recent funding rounds, I believe we are seeing just the conception of what's to come for the company in the next few years. Alongside its Series C announcement, the company also released a dedicated Future of 1Password landing page where they detail some of the biggest technological challenges that they're planning to tackle related to things like the daily pain points of having to sign in and out of our various accounts.
So universal sign-on is something near and dear to my heart. We all kind of assumed that SSO would solve the password problem, right? We'd just have single sign-on and you'd never have to think about it again. The problem is now we have an SSO problem. You go to a website and there's 4 different providers for this website. There's 3 different providers for this website. You know, like, we have a new problem, which is I go to a website, I have no clue what SSO provider I used, right?
Technological features aside, 1Password is also looking to develop some really interesting features that they haven't really talked about previously. I'll let Andrew Bayer explain on one of his favorite features that is currently in development of 1Password.
Estate planning. I think that's a great example of a feature that's been on our list for a decade more is, you know, we live in a digital era. You know, people's grandfathers are investing in Bitcoin in this day and age, right? Like, there's all sorts of really interesting things that you didn't have to worry about 50 years ago. You know, most people, you know, when they passed away, they had some retirement account. They had a couple bank accounts, no problem, easy to figure out. Nowadays, you know, your grandfather might have $100,000 in Bitcoin on some random service, right? So how do you ensure that when you pass away, either unexpectedly hit by a bus mentality or, you know, in old age, how do you ensure that, you know, your digital well-being and digital life is passed on to your loved ones? I think that's another thing that 1Password is well positioned to solve, and a great example of something that's been on our radar. We just haven't had the resources to go out and build it.
And in speaking with 1Password over the last year, one thing has stood out to me as a relatively small YouTube creator, and that is that they care deeply about their product. When I hopped on a call with Rustam and Andrew, it surprised me a little to hear that the founding owners still, to this day, are highly involved in the development work themselves. In a call that I had with their brand team, there wasn't a single mention around conversions, around how much of their product I could sell for them. The direct ROI of selling more of their product, whilst of course it's important for a business, wasn't a main focus. Instead, it's their continued passion for the customer experience that allows for people like you and I to enjoy using their product. To date, 1Password is still one of very few password managers that has 0 trackers embedded in its Android app, a vastly different comparison to others that blatantly embed multiple trackers in their apps, including marketing trackers whose sole purpose is to track your activity so they can gather more data about you, know your behaviors and habits, and tailor their marketing tactics accordingly. But not a single conversation that I've had with 1Password has been about money or how I can create a video content with the promise of X number of people are going to sign up for their product. Instead, it's been around honest opinions and education. If you want honest opinions, then you can take one look at Glassdoor, which lets us get a glimpse into what it's actually like to be employed and work for 1Password. Now, Glassdoor is a platform where current staff and former employees can go to write about how much the company they work for sucks. Because as with many online review websites, it's often the unhappy folks who go out of their way to share the unpleasant experiences or things they've kept bottled up about particular products or services. So it was a real surprise to me to find that 1Password actually has a solid rating of 4.8 stars on Glassdoor, with 98% of them approving of Jeff Shiner, the CEO, and 96% saying they would recommend 1Password as a company to a friend. Yes, there might of course be 2 or 3 negative reviews on there, but the majority of them are glowing references of what seems to be a positive and incredibly wonderful company to work for. A company that cares for their staff, their customers, and their product. Let me just roll a clip of Rustam, which was actually after I'd completed my more formal interview with him about the company events they used to provide their employees. In short, in pre-pandemic times, they take their entire company from all corners of the world and host them on a cruise.
We might have done it because the winters in Canada are so cold, and it's actually a pretty good time in January or February to go south. And yes, we tried different, like we actually went to the Dominican Republic a few times as the entire team. And then eventually we went on a boat, on the cruise. And yeah, I certainly missed this. And speaking about customer support, I still remember we used to do like as an entire team, what we would do, just because we still need to do customer support. Like we would have entire team doing customer support on the boat. Like we have some pictures there. It's like, 100 people sitting, working on different customer problems. It was actually a lot of fun. Some of my favorite memories there.
With all of the information I've learned around 1Password, after doing research for this video, getting to know the folks from the 1Password team, and from testing and using their product, along with many of the competing products out there is no better company that I would trust with my password information. 1Password is a company that does really seem to care about you, the customer, and not your experience, and not just selling more of their product. To this day, I am still personally surprised and grateful that 1Password has welcomed me into their world with open arms, and even given me a peek behind the curtains. Because the truth is, is, this video could have been made by someone much more successful than me, with a much larger following, with more views and more subscribers. Well, I'm grateful that I received the assignment. My name is Pete Matheson. I make videos around tech, cloud services and security. And if any of this has been interesting to you, then please do go watch another video. It means a lot to me. And I look forward to seeing you in another video soon. Cheers.